The CEO froze when he saw a little girl crying at his wife's grave. When he discovered the reason, he broke down in tears. Before we dive into this heart-wrenching story of love, loss, and an impossible promise, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Get ready for a journey that will touch your soul. Enjoy the story. The October rain fell softly on the grey headstones of Evergreen Cemetery, each drop carrying the weight of Marcus Holloway's grief. For 18 months, the 42-year-old CEO had made this pilgrimage every Sunday, his expensive suit soaked through as he knelt beside Claire's grave. "I miss you, sweetheart," he whispered, placing fresh white roses on the marble stone. The inscription read, "Claire Holloway, beloved wife, devoted doctor, forever in our hearts." Marcus closed his eyes, remembering her laugh, her gentle hands, healing sick children at Seattle Children's Hospital. The accident had stolen everything: their future, their dreams, their chance at the family they desperately wanted. A soft whimper broke through his thoughts. Behind a nearby oak tree, a small figure huddled in the shadows, a little girl, no more than 4 years old, with golden curls and tear-stained cheeks. She wore a pink dress and clutched a stuffed rabbit, her tiny shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Hey there, sweetheart," Marcus said gently, approaching slowly. "Are you lost?" The child looked up, and Marcus's breath caught. Her eyes, those impossibly familiar green eyes, locked onto his with startling intensity. For a moment, the world stopped. Then she smiled, a radiant expression that seemed to light up the dreary cemetery. "Mammy said to wait for Daddy," she whispered, her voice carrying a strange certainty that made Marcus's heart skip. Before he could respond, hurried footsteps approached. A well-dressed man in his 50s appeared, slightly out of breath. "Sophie, there you are," the man said, his tone sharp with relief and something else, fear. "I'm terribly sorry," he continued, addressing Marcus. "I'm Jonathan Rivers, her legal guardian. She wanders off sometimes." Rivers quickly scooped up the child, who struggled in his arms, reaching toward Marcus with desperate little hands. "But Sophie began. "She gets confused," Rivers interrupted firmly. "Makes up stories about people she sees. Trauma response from losing her mother." As Rivers carried Sophie away, she looked back at Marcus over the man's shoulder, her green eyes filled with inexplicable recognition and hope. "Mammy said Daddy would come," she called out, her voice fading as they disappeared between the headstones. Marcus stood frozen, his mind reeling. Those eyes, that face, and those words that seemed to pierce through 18 months of grief and unlock something he'd buried deep inside. Who was this child? And why did she look at him like she'd been waiting her entire life? Marcus couldn't shake the image of those green eyes. Back in his penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, he poured himself a scotch with trembling hands. The child's words echoed in his mind. "Mammy said to wait for Daddy." He walked to the mantel where Claire's photo smiled back at him, the same emerald eyes that had captivated him 8 years ago at the hospital charity gala. They'd married 2 years later, both dreaming of filling their home with children's laughter. But those dreams had crumbled when Dr. Martinez delivered the devastating news. "Your sperm motility is severely compromised, Mr. Holloway. Natural conception would be extremely difficult." Claire had taken the news harder than he had. The woman who spent her days healing children couldn't have her own. Marcus remembered holding her as she sobbed, promising they'd find another way. Then came the last 8 months of her life, the period that still haunted him. Claire had become distant, secretive. She'd leave for hours without explanation, returning with red-rimmed eyes and attention that seemed to radiate from her small frame. "Just work stress," she'd say when he asked. But Marcus knew better. Claire loved her job at the pediatric clinic. Something else was tearing her apart. The doorbell interrupted his thoughts. Helena, their longtime housekeeper, stood in the hallway, her weathered face creased with concern. "Mr. Holloway, I heard about what happened at the cemetery today. You look troubled." Marcus invited her in, desperate for answers. "Helena, you were with Claire more than anyone those last months. What was happening to her?" The older woman's hands twisted her apron nervously. "She was scared, sir, terrified. There were phone calls, ugly ones, that made her cry. She'd whisper into the phone, begging someone to leave her alone. Who was calling her? I don't know." But Helena hesitated. "There's something else. Before she died, Mrs. Claire gave me a key. Said if something happened to her, I should show you what she hid in the attic storage room." Marcus's heart pounded. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "She made me promise to wait." Said you'd know when the time was right. Helena's voice dropped to a whisper. I think after today, sir. That time has come. The key felt cold in Marcus's palm as they climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. In the corner, behind Christmas decorations, sat a small wooden chest he'd never seen before. His hands shook as he turned the key. The lid creaked open, revealing contents that would shatter everything he thought he knew about his wife's final months. Inside lay a stack of photographs, dozens of them, showing the same little girl from the cemetery growing from infant to toddler, Sophie, and beneath the photos, a birth certificate with a name that stopped his heart cold. The space for father was blank, but paper-clipped too. It was a note in Claire's handwriting. His eyes. She has his eyes. I taught her to wait for you, my darling. When you find this, you'll understand why I couldn't tell you. Protect her from Jonathan. She's our miracle. Marcus's world tilted on its axis. The scotch glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor like his understanding of reality. Marcus stared at the photographs with shaking hands. Each image told a story he'd never known existed. Sophie as a newborn, her tiny fist wrapped around what looked like Claire's finger. Sophie taking her first steps in what appeared to be a small apartment he didn't recognize. Sophie blowing out candles on birthday cakes he'd never seen. My God, he whispered, his voice barely audible in the dusty attic. How is this possible? Helena knelt beside him, her own eyes wide with shock. Sir, I had no idea. Mrs. Clare never said anything about a baby. Marcus dug deeper into the chest, his heart hammering against his ribs. Beneath the photographs lay a stack of letters, all addressed to him but never sent. The first one, dated 3 years ago, was written in Claire's careful script. My dearest Marcus, I don't know how to tell you this, but the fertility treatment worked. I'm pregnant. By the time you read this, our daughter will be walking and talking. I've named her Sophiette, means wisdom, and I pray she'll have the wisdom to understand why Mummy had to keep her safe. The second letter was darker, filled with fear. Jonathan Rivers knows about Sophie. He's threatening to destroy everything, my medical license, my reputation, other innocent doctors. He says if I don't help him with his foundation, he'll make sure Sophie disappears into the system forever. I can't let that happen to our miracle baby. Marcus's hands trembled as he read the final letter. I've been teaching Sophie about you, showing her your photographs every day. I tell her stories about her daddy who loves her, even though he doesn't know she exists yet. If something happens to me, she knows to wait for you at the cemetery. She knows your face, your voice from the videos I've shown her. She recognized you, Marcus. She's been waiting for you her whole life. At the bottom of the chest lay a small recording device. Marcus pressed play with trembling fingers. Claire's voice filled the attic, sweet and achingly familiar. Sophie, sweetheart, can you tell Daddy what Mummy taught you? A tiny voice responded. Mummy says Daddy has kind eyes, and he smells like the ocean. She says, when I see him, I should tell him that Mummy said to wait for Daddy. Marcus's vision blurred with tears. The recording continued with Claire teaching Sophie to recognize his voice, his walk, even his laugh. She'd prepared their daughter for a meeting that Claire somehow knew would come. There's more, sir, Helena said softly, pointing to a manila envelope labeled evidence. Inside were bank statements showing Claire had been secretly funding something called Safe Harbor Trust with thousands of dollars. Medical records indicating successful fertility treatments that Marcus had never known about. And most damning of all, photographs of Rivers with other children, all bearing the same fearful expressions Marcus had seen in Sophie's eyes. A handwritten note from Claire explained everything. Rivers runs an illegal adoption ring. He forces doctors to identify vulnerable families, then manipulates the system to take their children. I couldn't let him have Sophie, but I couldn't fight him alone. The accident wasn't an accident. Marcus, he's coming for her. Find her before he ships her overseas. She's waiting for you. Marcus sat back on his heels, the full horror of his wife's secret life washing over him. Claire had died protecting their daughter he'd never known, existed until today. The sound of his phone ringing shattered the silence. An unknown number. Mr. Holloway. The voice was smooth, cultured. This is Jonathan Rivers. I believe you met my ward today. I think we need to talk. Marcus's blood ran cold as Rivers' voice slithered through the phone. I understand you had quite an encounter with little Sophie today. She can be dramatic. What do you want? Marcus's voice was steel, his businessman instincts kicking in despite the emotional turmoil. To clarify a few things, Sophie is under my legal guardianship. Her mother, a troubled woman named Sarah Mitchell, died in a car accident 2 years ago. The child has attachment issues. She fixates on strangers, imagining familial connections that don't exist. Marcus gripped the phone tighter. That's not what I saw today. What you saw was a traumatized child projecting her fantasies onto you. It happens frequently. Just last month, she called a mailman grandpa and insisted he was her mother's father. Rivers chuckled coldly. I'm calling as a courtesy, Mr. Holloway. Stay away from Sophie, for her psychological well-being, and if I don't, then you'll discover that harassment of a minor is taken very seriously by the courts. I have excellent legal representation. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone, his mind racing. Rivers was smooth, prepared, but he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd given Sophie a different backstory than what Marcus had found in Claire's chest. Helena watched him with worried eyes. Sir, what did he say? Lies, all lies. Marcus stood, his resolve hardening. Helena, I need you to pack those documents carefully. Don't let anyone in this house except me. Where are you going? To find the truth about my daughter. Marcus drove through Seattle's evening traffic to the offices of Chen Investigations, a discreet firm he'd used for corporate matters. David Chen, a former FBI agent, greeted him with professional curiosity. Marcus, what brings you here on a Sunday evening? Marcus laid out the photographs and letters on Chen's desk. I need you to investigate this man Jonathan Rivers, and I need you to find everything you can about a little girl named Sophie. Chen studied the documents, his expression growing serious. This is heavy stuff, Marcus. If what your wife wrote is true, we're looking at organized child trafficking. Can you prove it? Give me time. But I have to warn you, men like Rivers don't operate alone. They have connections, protection. This could get dangerous. Marcus thought of Sophie's desperate, reaching toward him as Rivers carried her away. I don't care about dangerous, bad little girl is my daughter, and she's been waiting for me. Chen nodded slowly. I'll start with Rivers' background, his business connections, financial records, any legal troubles. But Marcus, we need to be smart about this. If he's really running an illegal operation, one wrong move could make Sophie disappear forever. What do you need from me? Stay away from the cemetery for now. Let me do the investigating. And Marcus, Chen's voice was grave. If your wife was right about her accident not being an accident, you need to be very careful. Rivers has already killed to protect his secrets. As Marcus drove home, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Sophie in a sterile-looking room, clutching her stuffed rabbit. She looked smaller, more frightened than at the cemetery. That the message read. She's asking for the man from the cemetery. Children forget quickly at her age. It would be best if this man never existed. Marcus pulled over, his hands shaking with rage and fear. Rivers was moving Sophie, isolating her, trying to erase the connection she'd felt. But it was too late for that. Sophie had recognized him because Claire had prepared her. And now Marcus would do whatever it took to keep the promise his wife had made to their daughter. The hunt for Sophie had begun. 3 days of sleepless nights had passed since Rivers' threatening call. Marcus sat in his office, staring at the city skyline, when his assistant buzzed in. Mr. Holloway, there's a doctor, Patricia Wells, here to see you. She says it's about your wife. Marcus's heart skipped. Dr. Wells had been Claire's closest colleague at the pediatric clinic. Send her in immediately. Patricia Wells entered, her face drawn with exhaustion and fear. She clutched a manila envelope against her chest like a shield. Marcus, I should have come sooner. I've been terrified. But after seeing the news about Rivers being investigated, she sank into the chair across from his desk. Claire made me promise to give you this if anything happened to her. With trembling hands, she extended a sealed envelope marked for Marcus, open only if I die. Marcus tore it open, his heart hammering, as he unfolded Claire's familiar handwriting. My beloved Marcus, if you're reading this, then Jonathan Rivers has won, but not completely. Our daughter Sophie is alive, and she's been waiting for you her entire life. The fertility treatment worked, darling. After 2 years of trying, we finally had our miracle. But I had to hide her pregnancy from everyone, including you. Rivers discovered my condition during a routine clinic inspection. He threatened to destroy not just my career, but the lives of 5 other doctors he'd been blackmailing. His New Beginnings Foundation is a front for child trafficking. He forces doctors to identify vulnerable families, then manipulates the system to take their children. When he learned about Sophie, he demanded I help him, or he'd make sure she disappeared into his network forever. I couldn't let that happen to our baby, so I made a deal with the devil. I would help him with medical evaluations in exchange for temporary custody. But I never stopped fighting. Marcus, I gathered evidence, contacted authorities, tried everything legal. Rivers has people everywhere, in child services, in the courts, even in the FBI. When I realized he was planning to have me killed, I taught Sophie about you. Every day, I showed her your pictures, played recordings of your voice, told her stories about her daddy. I told her that if something happened to Mummy, she should wait for you at the cemetery, where we first met. She knows your face, your voice, your heart. Sophie is our daughter, Marcus. The DNA will prove it. I've left samples in the lab freezer at the hospital, container marked CM personal. Use them to claim your child. Rivers will try to ship her overseas soon. Don't let him. She's been waiting for you to save her. I love you both. Keep our miracle safe. Claire. Marcus's vision blurred as tears streamed down his face. Patricia reached across the desk, her own eyes wet. She was so brave. Marcus, she tried everything to protect Sophie. The last time I saw her, she was terrified but determined. She said, if anything happens to me, Marcus will find her. I've made sure of it. How long have you known? I helped deliver Sophie. Claire made me promise to keep the secret until... Patricia's voice broke. Until it was safe. She was going to tell you everything after she found a way to stop Rivers. She never got the chance. Marcus stood, his mind racing. The DNA samples, they're still at the hospital. I've kept them safe. I can arrange the paternity test immediately. Do it. And Patricia. Marcus's voice hardened with resolve. Rivers thinks he's won, but he's underestimated a father's love. Sophie has been waiting for me, and I won't let her wait any longer. As Patricia left with instructions for the DNA test, Marcus called Chen. I need you to accelerate the investigation. I just learned Sophie is definitely my daughter, and Rivers is planning to move her out of the country. How much time do we have? Marcus looked at Claire's letter again, at the desperate love in every word. Not enough. But Claire prepared Sophie for this moment. She's been teaching her to wait for me her whole life. Then we better not keep her waiting. The DNA lab at Seattle General Hospital felt sterile and cold as Marcus waited for the results that would change everything. Dr. Patricia Wells stood beside him. Her hands clasped tightly as the technician prepared the samples. The samples from Dr. Claire Holloway's personal collection are still viable, the technician explained. We'll compare them with the court-ordered sample from the child. Marcus had fought for 3 days to get that court order. His attorney, Margaret Forster, had worked around the clock to present Claire's letter and the evidence from the attic as grounds for emergency paternity testing. Mr. Holloway, Margaret had warned him, Rivers' lawyers are fighting this hard. They claim you're a grieving widower having delusions. The judge was skeptical until we showed him the photographs and Claire's detailed letters. Now, as Marcus watched the technician process the samples, his phone buzzed with a text from Chen. Found something big. Rivers Foundation has processed $3.2 million in donations this year. No record of where that money went. Also, Sophie's current location confirmed, Eastside Safe House. But heavy security. The lab door opened, and Dr. James Morrison, the hospital's chief geneticist, entered with a manila folder. His expression was grave but not unkind. Mr. Holloway, I've reviewed the results personally. The DNA comparison between you, the samples from your late wife, and the child identified as Sophie. He paused, then smiled. Shows a 99.97% probability of paternity. Congratulations, sir. She's your daughter. Marcus's knees nearly buckled. Patricia steadied him as the full weight of confirmation hit him. Sophie, the little girl who had looked at him with such recognition, who had waited at Claire's grave because Mummy said to wait for Daddy, was truly his child. There's more, Dr. Morrison continued. The genetic markers indicate the child was conceived through assisted reproductive technology. The timing corresponds with treatments your wife received here 18 months before her death. Marcus pulled out his phone and called Chen immediately. David, it's confirmed. Sophie is my daughter. We need to move fast. I'm ahead of you. I've been surveilling the safe house. Rivers visited twice yesterday, and both times he brought official-looking documents. I think he's preparing for transport. How soon? My source says there's a private jet scheduled to leave SeaTac tomorrow night. Destination, Frankfurt, Germany. If Sophie gets on that plane, Marcus felt ice in his veins. She won't. What do you need from me? I've contacted federal agent Isabella Rodriguez. She's been tracking Rivers for 6 months on a separate case. Your evidence, combined with the DNA proof, might be enough for a federal warrant. Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. Mr. Holloway, there's something else. In reviewing your wife's medical records, I found notes about threatening phone calls and concerns for her safety. She'd asked me to preserve certain tissue samples in case something happened to her. At the time, I thought it was just anxiety, but now it looks like she was preparing for exactly this scenario. Marcus finished. She knew Rivers would try to erase all evidence of Sophie's true parentage. Patricia wiped her eyes. She was always 3 steps ahead. Even in death, she's still protecting your daughter. Marcus's phone rang. Agent Rodriguez's voice was crisp and professional. Mr. Holloway, I need you at the federal building in 1 hour. Bring all documentation. We're going to bring your daughter home. As Marcus gathered the DNA results and Claire's evidence, he felt her presence strongly. She had orchestrated this moment from beyond the grave, leaving breadcrumbs for him to follow, teaching Sophie to recognize him, preserving the scientific proof he would need. Hold on, Sophie, he whispered to the empty lab. Daddy's coming. The hunt was about to become a rescue. Agent Isabella Rodriguez's office at the FBI field building was a stark contrast to Marcus's corporate world. Evidence boards covered the walls, connected by red string like a spider's web of corruption. At the center was a photograph of Jonathan Rivers. Mr. Holloway, your wife stumbled into something we've been investigating for 8 months, Rodriguez said, her dark eyes intense. Rivers doesn't just traffic children, he's built an entire network across 3 states. Marcus studied the evidence board, his stomach turning. Photos of missing children, financial records, fake documents. It was a horror show disguised as charity work. How many children? He asked quietly. We've identified 37 cases in the past 5 years. Sophie would be it. Rodriguez pulled out a thick file. Your evidence is the missing piece we needed. The DNA proof that Sophie is your daughter, combined with your wife's documentation, gives us grounds for federal charges. David Chen entered the office, his expression grim. Isabella, we have a problem. Rivers moved Sophie 2 hours ago. My contact at the safe house says she's been transferred to a private facility in Tacoma. Marcus felt panic rising. How far is that? From SeaTac Airport, 20 minutes, Chen replied. The jet I told you about, it's been moved up. Now departing tonight at 11 p.m. Rodriguez stood, her jaw set. Then we move now. I've got warrants being processed for Rivers, his associates, and the seizure of all New Beginnings Foundation assets. What about Sophie? Marcus's voice was tight. With fear, we'll get her back. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. Rivers has been doing this for over a decade. He's smart, connected, and desperate. When we corner him, he might try to use Sophie as leverage. Marcus thought of Claire's letter, of the recordings where she prepared Sophie for this moment. Sophie knows me. Claire made sure of that. She's been waiting for me. That might be our advantage, Rodriguez said. Chen, I need you to coordinate. With the Tacoma field office, we're going to hit 3 locations simultaneously. Rivers' office, the facility where Sophie is being held, and his private residence. As they planned the operation, Marcus's phone buzzed with another unknown number. This time, it was a video message. His breath caught as Sophie's face appeared on the screen, tear-streaked and frightened. Please, I want to go home, she said, in her small voice. I want to see the nice man from the cemetery. Mummy said he would come for me. Rivers' voice came from off-camera. Your mummy was confused, sweetheart. That man isn't coming. You're going to meet your new family tonight. The video ended, but not before Marcus saw something that made his blood run cold. In the background, he could see suitcases and travel documents on a table. They're moving her tonight, he said, showing the video to Rodriguez. She's terrified, but she's still asking for me. Rodriguez was already on her radio. This is Agent Rodriguez. I need all units to converge on the Tacoma facility now. We have a federal kidnapping in progress. Chen placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. Your wife was brilliant, Marcus. She programmed Sophie to recognize you, to trust you. When we find her, she'll know you're the daddy she's been waiting for. If we find her in time, Marcus said grimly. Rodriguez checked her weapon. We will. Rivers has been sloppy, overconfident. He thinks because he's operated for years without consequences, he's untouchable. But he made one fatal mistake. What's that? He took the daughter of a man who doesn't give up, and he underestimated a mother's love, even from beyond the grave. As they prepared to leave, Marcus touched the DNA results in his pocket. Somewhere in a facility 20 miles away, his daughter was waiting for him, just as Claire had taught her to do. The final confrontation was about to begin. The FBI tactical van raced through Tacoma's industrial district as Rodriguez coordinated the multi-site operation through her headset. Marcus sat beside her, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. Team Alpha has Rivers' office surrounded, Rodriguez reported. Team Beta is positioned at his residence. We're 30 seconds from the facility. Chen's voice crackled through the radio. Isabella, you need to see what we found at Rivers' office. Financial records show payments to judges, social workers, even some FBI personnel. This goes deeper than we thought. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. How deep? Judge Morrison, the one who initially blocked Marcus's custody petition, received $50,000 last month. Social worker Linda Hayes, who rubber-stamped Sophie's placement with Rivers, got a new BMW. We're looking at systematic corruption. The van pulled up to an unmarked warehouse surrounded by high fences. Through the windows, Marcus could see children's toys scattered in a fenced yard, a grotesque parody of a playground. This is where they process the kids before transport, Rodriguez explained. Rivers calls it a transition facility. Really, it's a holding pen. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Turn around now, or the girl goes on tonight's flight in pieces. Rodriguez read the message over his shoulder. He's panicking. That's good for us. How is that good? He's threatening to kill my daughter, because desperate people make mistakes. And Rivers just made a big one. He admitted Sophie is on tonight's flight. We know exactly where he's taking her. The tactical team moved swiftly toward the building. Marcus followed, his heart pounding as they approached the entrance. Through a small window, he could see a sterile corridor lined with doors. Multiple heat signatures, the team leader reported. At least 6 adults, estimated 12 children. Rodriguez turned to Marcus. When we go in, stay behind me. If Sophie sees you, she might react. We need to be ready for that. They breached the door with swift precision. The facility was eerily quiet, except for the sound of muffled crying from behind locked doors. FBI, everyone on the ground. Rodriguez shouted. To men in suits tried to flee, but were immediately apprehended. A woman in a nurse's uniform stood frozen, her hands raised. Where are the children? Rodriguez demanded. The woman pointed down the corridor with shaking fingers. Rooms 1 through 6. But you're too late. Mr. Rivers took the special one an hour ago. Marcus's heart sank. Sophie, the blonde girl. He said she was going to her forever family tonight. Rodriguez was already on her radio. Chen, Rivers isn't at the facility. Sophie's not here. Where else could he be? Chen's voice was tight. Private airfield. I just tracked his Mercedes heading toward Boeing Field. The jet's been moved there. As they raced toward the vehicles, Marcus's phone rang. Rivers' voice was cold and mocking. You should have stayed away, Mr. Holloway. Now Sophie will pay the price for your interference. Listen to me, Rivers. I have the DNA proof. I have evidence of your entire operation. It's over, perhaps, but Sophie will be in Germany by midnight. And good luck proving paternity when she's living under a new name in a country that doesn't recognize your authority. In the background, Marcus could hear Sophie crying. I want the man from the cemetery. Mummy said he would come. Rivers' voice turned vicious. Your mummy was a fool who got exactly what she deserved. Now stop crying, or I'll give you something to really cry about. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone, rage and terror warring in his chest. Rodriguez placed a hand on his shoulder. We'll get her back, Marcus. Rivers is making his last stand, but he's cornered, and cornered animals make fatal mistakes. As they sped toward Boeing Field, Marcus thought of Claire's promise to Sophie. Daddy will come for you. He'd been too late to save his wife, but he wouldn't be too late to save his daughter. The final confrontation was about to begin. Boeing Field's private aviation terminal was bathed in harsh floodlights as the FBI convoy screeched to a halt. Through the chain-link fence, Marcus could see a sleek Gulfstream jet on the tarmac, its engines already spinning. There, Rodriguez pointed to a black Mercedes near the aircraft. "That's Rivers' car." Chen's voice crackled through the radio. "Airfield security is cooperating. They've been ordered to delay takeoff, but Rivers has a federal judge on speed dial. We might have minutes before he gets clearance." Marcus watched through binoculars as figures moved around the plane. His heart stopped when he saw a small blonde girl being carried up the aircraft steps, her stuffed rabbit clutched in her arms. "Sophie," he whispered. Rodriguez was coordinating with the tactical team, perimeter secured, snipers in position. "But we have a problem. Rivers has positioned himself, and the girl in the plane's doorway. One wrong move." Marcus's phone buzzed. With an incoming call, Rivers' face appeared on the video screen, and behind him, Marcus could see Sophie strapped into an airplane seat, her green eyes wide with terror. "Mr. Holloway, I'm impressed by your persistence, but it ends here. Let her go, Rivers. She's just a child. She's a commodity, and a very valuable one. My clients in Frankfurt have paid handsomely for a healthy American girl with her attributes." Marcus felt sick. "What do you want?" "I want you to call off your federal friends. I want clear takeoff authorization. And I want a 2-hour head start before any international alerts go out. And if I refuse..." Rivers' smile was cruel. "Then little Sophie learns what happens to children who cause too much trouble." In the background, Sophie's small voice could be heard. "Where's the man from the cemetery? Mummy said he would come save me." Rivers turned toward her with irritation. "Your mummy lied to you, just like she lied to everyone else." "No." Sophie's voice was defiant despite her fear. "Mummy never lies. She said Daddy has kind eyes and smells like the ocean." But heart broke at the courage in his daughter's voice. Claire had prepared her for this moment, had given her the strength to hold on to hope even in her darkest hour. "You hear that, Rivers?" Marcus said into the phone. "She knows I'm coming. My wife made sure of that. Your wife was a meddling fool who got what she deserved, and now her precious daughter will disappear forever." Rodriguez grabbed Marcus's arm. "Keep him talking, we're getting into position." Marcus forced himself to stay calm. "How long have you been doing this, Rivers? How many families have you destroyed?" "Families?" Rivers laughed bitterly. "I reunite children with people who actually want them, people who can afford to give them proper lives." "You mean you sell them to the highest bidder?" "I provide a service. There are wealthy couples in Europe who can't adopt through traditional channels. I help them." Through the phone, Marcus could hear Sophie crying softly. "I want to go home. I want my mummy." "Your mummy is dead," Rivers said harshly, "and your supposed daddy is about to watch you fly away forever." Something snapped inside Marcus. "Listen to me, you bastard. That little girl has been waiting for me her entire life. Her mother died protecting her from you, and I will move heaven and earth to keep the promise my wife made." "What promise?" "That Daddy would come for her. And I'm here, Rivers. I'm here, and I'm not leaving without my daughter." Rodriguez held up her hand, the signal that her team was ready. Through the binoculars, Marcus could see FBI agents moving into position around the aircraft. Rivers seemed to sense the tightening. "Net, you have 30 seconds to call them off. Holloway or Sophie takes her first and last airplane ride." Marcus looked at Rodriguez, who nodded grimly. Everything hung in the balance: his daughter's life, Claire's sacrifice, and the promise that had brought them all to this moment. "Sophie," Marcus called out, loud enough for his voice to carry across the tarmac. "Daddy's here, just like Mummy said." Sophie's head turned toward the sound of Marcus's voice, her eyes widening with recognition even from a distance. "Daddy," she cried out, struggling against her restraints. "You came. Mummy said you would come." Rivers spun around, his face twisted with rage. "Shut up, you little brat." But it was too late. Sophie's joyful recognition had given the FBI the opening they needed. Rodriguez spoke into her radio. "Target has turned away from the perimeter. Move in now." Marcus watched in agonizing slow motion as tactical agents swarmed the aircraft. Rivers grabbed Sophie, using her as a human shield, but the little girl was no longer the terrified, passive victim he'd counted on. "Let me go," Sophie screamed, kicking and biting. "I want my daddy, the man with kind eyes." "How does she know you?" Rivers snarled into his phone. "How is this possible?" Because my wife spent 3 years preparing her for this moment, Marcus said, his voice steady despite his terror. She taught Sophie to recognize me, to trust me, to wait for me. You never stood a chance. An FBI negotiator's voice boomed through a megaphone. Mr. Rivers, release the child and surrender peacefully. You're surrounded. Rivers' grip tightened on Sophie, but she continued to struggle. You're not my family, she shouted. Mummy showed me pictures of my real daddy. He's here. He came for me. Through the phone, Marcus could hear Rivers' breathing becoming erratic. The man was losing control, and that made him more dangerous. Rivers, listen to me, Marcus said calmly. It's over. You've lost. But Sophie doesn't have to get hurt. Let her go, and we can work something out. Work something out. Rivers laughed bitterly. I'm facing federal trafficking charges. Life in prison. There's nothing to work out. There's always something. But not if you hurt an innocent child. Sophie's voice cut through the tension. Daddy, I'm scared, but I waited for you, just like Mummy said. She told me you would come save me. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. I'm here, sweetheart. Daddy's here, and I'm never leaving. You again. You're not her father. Rivers screamed. She's just a confused little girl whose DNA doesn't lie. Marcus interrupted. She's mine. She's been mine since the day she was born, and she's been waiting for me, because her mother loved us both enough to prepare her for this moment. Rodriguez signaled to Marcus. Her team was in position for a precision strike. They just needed Rivers to move Sophie away from the aircraft door. Sophie, Marcus called out, remember what Mummy taught you about playing hide-and-seek? Sometimes you have to be very, very still. Sophie's eyes locked onto his across the tarmac. Even at 4 years old, she understood. She suddenly went completely limp in Rivers' arms, catching him off guard. Now, Rodriguez shouted. The world exploded into motion. The FBI tactical team moved with precision, born of countless hours of training. As Sophie went limp, Rivers stumbled backward, his grip loosening for just a split second. That was all the opening Agent Martinez needed. The sniper's non-lethal shot hit Rivers in the shoulder, spinning him away from Sophie. In that same instant, Agent Thompson vaulted up the aircraft steps, catching Sophie as she fell. I've got her, Thompson shouted into his radio. Child is secure. Rivers collapsed on the aircraft floor, clutching his wounded shoulder and screaming obscenities. Within seconds, he was surrounded by agents, handcuffed, and dragged away from the plane. Marcus broke through the security perimeter, his heart hammering as he ran toward the aircraft. Sophie, Sophie, it's Daddy. Agent Thompson appeared at the top of the aircraft steps, carrying Sophie in his arms. The little girl's face was streaked with tears, but when she saw Marcus, her expression transformed into pure joy. Daddy, she cried, reaching out her small arms. You came, just like Mummy said. Marcus took the steps 2 at a time, his vision blurred with tears. When Thompson placed Sophie in his arms, the world seemed to stop. She was so small, so fragile, but her grip on him was fierce with desperate love. I waited for you, she whispered, against his neck. I waited at the cemetery like Mummy taught me. She said you would come save me. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here, and I'm never letting you go again. Sophie pulled back to look at his face, her green eyes, so like Claire's, studying him intently. You smell like the ocean, just like Mummy said, and you have kind eyes. Marcus laughed through his tears. Your Mummy was very smart. She made sure you would know me. She showed me pictures every day. She said you were the best daddy in the whole world, and that you loved me even though you couldn't see me yet. Rodriguez approached them, her own eyes wet. Marcus, we need to get Sophie to the hospital for a medical evaluation. Standard procedure. No. Sophie clung to Marcus frantically. Don't let them take me away again. I want to stay with Daddy. I'm not going anywhere, Marcus promised, holding her tighter. I'm coming with you to the hospital. We're going to do everything together from now on. As they walked toward the ambulance, Sophie looked up at him with solemn eyes. Daddy, the bad man said Mummy was lying. But she wasn't lying, was she? Marcus felt his heart breaking for all the pain his daughter had endured. No, sweetheart, Mummy never lied to you. She loved you so much that she made sure you would find me when you needed me most. She said you would take care of me forever and ever. That's right, forever and ever. Sophie nestled against his chest, finally safe in the arms she'd been waiting for her entire life. I knew you would come. Mummy promised, and Mummy always keeps her promises. As the ambulance doors closed behind them, Marcus held his daughter close, feeling Claire's presence surrounding them both. She had kept her promise too. She had made sure Sophie would find her way home. The hospital examination room felt like a sanctuary compared to the chaos of the airfield. Sophie sat on Marcus's lap, refusing to let go of his hand as Dr. Sarah Chen completed her medical evaluation. "She's remarkably resilient," Dr. Chen told Marcus quietly. "Some minor bruising on her wrists from restraints, but no serious physical harm. The psychological evaluation will take time, but she seems to be processing everything well." Sophie looked up at Marcus with tired eyes. "Daddy, can we go home now, to the house where Mummy lived?" Marcus's throat tightened. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going home." A knock at the door interrupted them. Agent Rodriguez entered with a thick folder and a grim expression. "Marcus, I have updates on the investigation. Rivers is talking, trying to cut a deal. What he's revealed is extensive." Rodriguez sat down, her voice low so Sophie couldn't hear clearly. "The network goes back 15 years, 27 children confirmed trafficked, with Sophie being the 28th. Rivers had connections in 3 states, judges, social workers, even some federal personnel." Marcus felt sick. How many families were destroyed? We're still counting. "But Marcus, there's something else." Rivers finally admitted why he targeted Claire specifically. "What do you mean?" Rodriguez glanced at Sophie, then back at Marcus. Claire wasn't just a random victim. Rivers had been watching her fertility treatments. He knew she was desperate for a child, vulnerable. When she got pregnant, he saw an opportunity. He planned this from the beginning. He planned to take Sophie from birth. But Claire was smarter than he anticipated. She hid the pregnancy, arranged for private delivery, and started gathering evidence against him immediately. Sophie had been listening more intently than Marcus realized. "Mummy was very brave, wasn't she, Daddy?" Marcus squeezed her hand. "The bravest person I ever knew. She used to cry at night when she thought I was sleeping. But she always told me stories about you, to make me feel better." Rodriguez's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then stood. "Marcus, there's a reporter here, Sarah Martinez from the Seattle Times. She's been investigating Rivers independently. She wants to interview you. I don't think I'm ready for that. Think about it. Going public might help other families come forward, and it might prevent Rivers from getting a lenient sentence." Dr. Chen returned with discharge papers. "Sophie's ready to go home. I've arranged for a child psychologist to visit tomorrow. Dr. Amanda Foster specializes in trauma recovery." As they prepared to leave, Sophie tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, can we visit Mummy's grave? I want to tell her you found me." Marcus felt his heart break and heal simultaneously. "Of course, sweetheart, we'll visit Mummy together. I want to tell her that she kept her promise. You did come for me, just like," she said. As they walked out of the hospital, Sophie's small hand in his. Marcus realized that Claire's greatest gift hadn't been just preparing Sophie to recognize him. It had been teaching her to hold on to hope, even in the darkest moments. "Daddy," Sophie said as they reached the car, "are you going to keep me forever?" Marcus knelt down to her level, looking into those familiar green eyes. "Forever and always, sweetheart. I promise." "Good, because I've been waiting my whole life for you to come home." 6 months later, Marcus sat in the federal courthouse holding Sophie's hand as they waited for the verdict. The trial had been grueling. Weeks of testimony, evidence from, and reliving the nightmare that had torn their family apart. Sophie, now 5 and thriving in therapy, squeezed his fingers. "Is the bad man going to jail forever, Daddy?" "That's what we're here to find out, sweetheart." The courtroom doors opened, and Judge Patricia Morrison entered, the same judge who had initially blocked Marcus's custody petition before they discovered she'd been paid by Rivers. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" Judge Morrison asked. "We have, Your Honor." Marcus held his breath as the foreman stood. "On the charge of human trafficking, we find the defendant, Jonathan Rivers, guilty. On the charge of racketeering, guilty. On the charge of kidnapping, guilty." The courtroom erupted. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face as Sophie looked up at him with confused eyes. "What does that mean, Daddy?" "It means the bad man can never hurt you or any other children again." Agent Rodriguez approached them with a satisfied smile. 25 years minimum. Marcus, no possibility of parole for 15 years. Dr. Patricia Wells, who had testified about Claire's fear in her final months, embraced them both. Claire would be so proud. "You kept her promise." As they left the courthouse, reporter Sarah Martinez approached. "Mr. Holloway, your case has already led to reforms in the adoption system. How does it feel to know Sophie's suffering helped protect other children?" Marcus looked down at his daughter, who was drawing pictures of butterflies on a small pad. "Claire always said Sophie was meant for great things. Even at 5 years old, she's already changing the world. What's next for you both?" "We're going home. We're going to visit Mummy's grave and tell her that justice was served. And then we're going to start living the life Claire always wanted for us." Sophie tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, can we get ice cream after we see Mummy?" Marcus laughed, the sound lighter than it had been in years. "Of course, sweetheart. We can do anything we want now." As they walked toward the car, Sophie skipped beside him, her traumatic past gradually giving way to the bright future Claire had envisioned. The nightmare was over. The healing could finally begin. 1 year after the trial, Marcus stood in his home office, reviewing applications for the Claire Holloway Foundation, the organization, dedicated to reuniting trafficked children with their families, had already helped 12 families find their missing loved ones. Sophie bounded into the room, her blonde curls bouncing as she carried a drawing. "Daddy, look what I made." The picture showed 3 figures, a man, a woman, and a little girl, holding hands under a bright sun. "That's us," she explained. "You, me, and Mummy, watching from heaven." Marcus knelt beside her, his heart full. "It's beautiful. Sweetheart, should we take it to Mummy's grave this weekend?" Sophie nodded eagerly. Their monthly visits to Claire's grave had become a cherished tradition. Sophie would tell her mother about school, her friends, and how happy she was with the daddy you picked for me. Dr. Foster knocked on the office door. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have Sophie's latest evaluation results." Marcus looked up hopefully. The child psychologist had been working with Sophie for over a year, helping her process her trauma. "She's made remarkable progress," Dr. Foster said with a smile. "The nightmares have stopped completely. Her attachment to you is healthy and secure, and most importantly, she's learned to trust again." "What about her memories of rivers?" "She remembers, but they no longer frighten her. She understands that bad things happened, but she feels safe now. Your consistent love and Claire's preparation gave her incredible resilience." Sophie looked up from her drawing. "Dr. Foster, I dreamed about Mummy last night. She was happy because Daddy found me." "That sounds like a wonderful dream," Dr. Foster replied gently. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Agent Rodriguez. "Another family reunited through the foundation. The Morrison children are going home to their parents in Portland. 3 more kids saved because of Sophie's courage." He showed the message to Sophie, who beamed with pride. "Mummy said I was supposed to help other kids. Is that what we're doing?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're keeping other children safe, just like Mummy wanted." Sophie climbed onto his lap, settling against his chest. "Daddy, sometimes I still wait for you." Marcus's heart clenched. "What do you mean?" "When you go to work, I wait for you to come home. But it's a happy waiting now, not a scared waiting, because I know you always come back." Marcus held her close, understanding the profound difference. The desperate waiting of a lost child had transformed into the confident expectation of a beloved daughter. "I will always come back to you, Sophie, always. I know, because that's what daddies do." 2 years had passed since that cold October day when Marcus first met his daughter at Claire's grave. Now, on a warm spring morning, he watched Sophie play. In their backyard garden, her laughter echoing through the air like music. "Daddy, look," Sophie called out, holding up a small sunflower she'd been nurturing. "It's as tall as me now." Marcus smiled, remembering how Claire had always loved sunflowers. "Mummy would be so proud of your green thumb, sweetheart." Sophie had grown into a confident 6-year-old, her traumatic past now just shadows that occasionally flickered but could no longer hurt her. She attended kindergarten at a local school, made friends easily, and had even started taking piano lessons. Helena emerged from the house carrying a tray of lemonade. "Mr. Holloway, there's someone here to see you." Agent Rodriguez appeared behind her, but this time she wasn't wearing her usual serious expression. She was smiling broadly. "Marcus, I have news. The Claire Holloway Foundation just helped locate 3 more missing children. That brings our total to 27 reunited families." Sophie ran over, her face lighting up. "Aunt Isabella, did we save more kids?" Rodriguez had become an honorary family member, checking on them regularly and coordinating the foundation's work with federal agencies. "We sure did," kiddo. And it's all because you were brave enough to tell your story. Marcus felt a familiar surge of pride and grief. Claire's sacrifice had rippled outward, protecting dozens of children from the fate that had nearly befallen Sophie. There's something else, Rodriguez continued. The state is naming a new child protection center after Claire. The dedication ceremony is next month. Sophie tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Can we go, Daddy? I want to tell everyone about how Mummy saved me. Of course, sweetheart. As Rodriguez left, Marcus and Sophie settled on the porch swing that overlooked Claire's memorial garden. Sophie curled up against his side, her small hand resting on his chest. Daddy, do you think Mummy knows about all the kids we've helped? Marcus looked up at the sky, feeling Claire's presence as strongly as ever. I think she knows, sweetheart, and I think she's very proud of us. Sometimes I still dream about her. She tells me that she's happy because you found me, and because we're helping other kids find their daddies and mummies too. What else does she tell you? Sophie smiled sleepily. That she loves us both very much, and that she's not sad anymore, because her plan worked. Marcus kissed the top of her head. What was her plan? To make sure we found each other. She said love always finds a way. As the sun set over their garden, Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them here. Claire's desperate preparation, Sophie's incredible courage, and the love that had sustained them through the darkest moments. Daddy, Sophie's voice was getting drowsy. Yes, sweetheart. You know what the best part is? What's that? I don't have to wait for you anymore. You're here, and you're never leaving. Marcus held her closer, his heart full of gratitude for the woman who had loved them both enough to orchestrate their reunion from beyond the grave. Never, Sophie, we're family forever. Forever and always, she murmured, echoing the promise that had started it all. As stars appeared in the darkening sky, Marcus carried his sleeping daughter inside, knowing that somewhere, Claire was smiling. Her greatest gift hadn't been just preparing Sophie to recognize him. It had been teaching them both that love transcends even death, and that some promises are so powerful they can bridge any distance. The waiting was over. The healing was complete, and their forever family was finally home. The end.